Welcome to Fear and Greed Sunday feature. I'm Michael Thompson. It's Australia Day, so we're going to feature, as you would expect, an Australian company doing big things. When all the focus is on Elon Musk and on Tesla, it might surprise you to learn about a local company making some pretty significant headway in the space of driverless autonomous electric vehicles. Sean Aylmer spoke with Julian Broadbent, the founder and CEO of Applied EV, back in May of 2023 about this fascinating company. It is a great chat. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. I reckon this could be one of the most futuristic interviews we have ever done on this podcast, and it's not just talking about where we're going, it's about a company that's already doing remarkable things with technology. While electric vehicles are booming, one part of the industry still seems a little problematic: the promise of driverless autonomous vehicles. We're a long way from having true self-driving cars. But Australian company Applied EV is coming at it from a different perspective. Instead of trying to get driverless cars delivering passengers, they're focusing on self-driving vehicles that do dangerous, dirty or dull jobs. Not quite as glamorous, but pretty amazing. Julian Broadbent is the founder and CEO of Applied EV. Julian, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Great to be here, Sean. Thank you for the very positive introduction. Loved it.
Julian, you worked for General Motors in Detroit and Melbourne for nearly 20 years. Much of your role during that period was identifying trends. At what point did it click with you that EVs are the future?
The tipping point was really when GM in particular, and this was the same for any automaker really. General Motors is just my company that I worked with, but every OEM was starting to celebrate 100-year birthdays. There's probably been a plethora of them. And what that sort of implies is that the process of building a particular product is approaching full optimization in terms of how things are built and how they're done. So what sort of was very interesting was the advent of technology companies in a completely different lane, starting to embrace themes like software eats the world, a great Mark Andreessen comment, starting to see technology emerging in other industries which weren't just software, in mining industries, some beginnings around technology in self-driving vehicles, etc. So if you imagine that you're sitting inside a giant OEM, and there was lots of people doing this, so of course it wasn't the only one, looking out the window, it was like, wow, is it actually possible that Windows could actually drive a vehicle? Because it was a bit of a joke, right, in the late 90s, when we had Office or Microsoft Windows, or it could have been a Mac as well. The system would crash, you'd get a blue screen, and Microsoft would say, sorry. So the whole idea of, Windows running a vehicle was quite unfathomable. And I became intrigued with some of the movements around Google X at the time. It wasn't even Waymo. We began programs where we were shipping some of the very first electric vehicles in GM to the Mountain View campus of Google to do a thing called ride sharing. They called it ride sharing. We'd never heard of that, which was really just like a tap and go. You could get a vehicle whenever you want, and you just left it parked, a bit like what we would see e-bikes or e-scooters do today. This was just on the Google campus. So I really felt that there was this big shift. There was this big shift in technology. It was only a matter of time before the incumbent automakers were going to be threatened. And then I guess the punchline that we're all very well aware of now is that a South African-born American decided that he would do an electric car for a market that didn't exist according to the OEMs. And of course, the market did exist. So at this sort of point of time, I just found this really interesting given where these very mature companies were. And maybe we were living at this point in time inside a Kodak moment, if you follow me there. Maybe we were sitting right in the middle of the digital camera disrupting the emulsion film business. Maybe that's what it was, and that was kind of intriguing.
So there's still quite a ways to go from that to launching your own EV business. What made you do it?
It was really, we're not the youngest startup in the world in terms of the average age of the individuals. We're not the cliche where we're probably a bit more old age and cunning than, youth and enthusiasm. we're probably a little bit wiser. We actually attract a lot of really senior, not as in age, but senior as in high level personnel. We attract people that feel like they want to make a difference, and they want to be able to take a technology and deliver something remarkable. So, we weren't sitting there saying, okay, here's our Harvard business plan and we want to raise, particular money on the back of this sort of business plan that paints a picture of a really audacious goal and a big end of the rainbow opportunity that would be incredibly hard to solve. We were probably more, why don't we try and understand what people haven't understood yet? Why don't we try and understand what the gap is here? What is the gap between Silicon Valley and Detroit? What is the gap between, Silicon Valley and the German automakers? Why isn't software technology moving across into more automotive? Why isn't that technology being able to be commercialized, even though, very, very quickly, $100 billion plus had been pumped into that? And so we just became intrigued. We kind of had automotive experience. We kind of knew about technology. We weren't sort of locked into one ecosystem or the other. So AEV has kind of built itself up to be able to create products that are essentially gluing technology into the established automotive sector.
Okay, so is it, we hear about driverless cars and trucks and things like that. Is that kind of the headline act for AEV, as you put it, or is it primarily what you're doing?
So what we do is what the industry is now calling X-by-wire, which is kind of like fly-by-wire, drive-by-wire, control-by-wire. In other words, it's controlling an entire machine and all the functions of a machine with software. And one aspect of control is driving the vehicle. But then there's other aspects of control, like the applications that might run on that vehicle, opening the doors for a delivery vehicle, operating the system via remote control, the teleoperations. All of these things need to be sort of synthesized together to create a product that is truly running on software, because the ultimate goal for everyone in the entire value chain, the people that make the vehicle, the autonomous technology partners, the sensor companies, our company, and then the end user, the customer, who's trying to provide a service to the consumer, we're all trying to extract value that we couldn't get before by taking the driver out or removing mechanical components that can be replaced with software. But now, compared to, say, the early days of the industry, where some of the companies were literally trying to boil the ocean, they would be fully vertically integrated, everyone's now realised this is an incredibly hard thing to do. So there's a lot of great partnerships that are forming to be able to, I guess, share a slice of the pie.
Stay with me, Julian. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Julian Broadbent, founder and CEO of Applied EV. Where are we up to in that process or journey or whatever it is towards getting I'm going to say a driverless car, but it's kind of much broader than that. That will be my euphemism for what we're talking about here. And where are the real pain points?
We're a lot closer now, we, the industry. We're a lot closer. We are seeing that, like a lot of autonomous tech companies, are now very much focused on commercialization. So they're bringing the horizon forward. Remember, the culture before March 22 was there's endless money. We can keep shooting for the stars and trying to land on the moon. But when the world of free money kind of disappeared and we normalized again, the whole industry started to become, well, hang on a minute, we can't do this all by ourselves. We need to partner and we need to commercialize like yesterday, right? Because we're running out of money. We need to go from an idea to a real business. And so that's kind of, I guess, all the new technology elements of what it takes to bring an autonomous vehicle to market. And I guess also, maybe serendipitously, the entire automotive side of the equation, the vehicle side of the equation, have been disrupted by someone like Tesla. And so the entire automotive side of the value chain is now saying, well, how do we run vehicles on software, which creates better margin and better business for the automakers which again happens to be a hand-in-glove necessity to run functions, high-level functions like autonomous driving. I hope you can follow that. Like this is a
My question then is, so with autonomous vehicles, all these subparts are kind of heading in that direction, and there's a certain fiscal discipline that from March 2022 with the energy crisis, inflation, higher interest rates, that has kind of probably a good thing for the sector in a sense because it makes you focus on commerciality of it. The point is, I mean, there are autonomous trucks, and I know you've been involved in autonomous heavy vehicles and things like that. I mean, is it a fair question to say, is it actually consumers adopting it? Is it kind of Internet of Things that's the issue? What is it that we really need, the big hurdle before we get there? Or is that an unfair question?
No. It's absolutely right. The challenges are of a very high order of magnitude because of the amount of software involved. And when I use software, it's not just front end, what you see on a screen. It's really the middleware, the engine room software. But the entire product that is now spread across different partners in the industry, automakers, technology companies like us, autonomous software guys, sensor companies, camera companies, AI compute. This is what goes into a vehicle. It's a really substantially smart machine, probably bordering on having to cover more software territory than aerospace. Aerospace is obviously looks very dramatic, and it obviously is a very significant thing, but we're talking about essentially that sort of aerospace level of technology and some. We're talking about interfacing with consumers. Aerospace doesn't interface with consumers. They're all professionals. It's a well-established industry, lots of safety processes. We're talking about that level of software and beyond, because there's all that functionality entering our lives. And so to be able to not have any, failure points or any blue screens is incredibly difficult. That's what the industry's, thinking about at the moment. And if I could share an example with you, everyone gets a new car every now and again. And we've had a few new cars in our family over the last few years. And nearly every one of them, brand new, 2022, 2023, have had a problem with software. And when you think about that in the context of a vehicle that might be self-driving, that's diabolical, right?
Yeah. No room for error.
I'm just talking about the way your phone might connect.
Yeah.
So the ability to be able to tolerate a failure point in the software, which is now not become the second order level of control, because us as drivers would be the first level of order. The software is now the first order control of the machine. So now it needs to be perfect. And so getting sort of really specific about your question, the safety and the robustness of that software, the ability to do error checking, the ability for the software to correct itself, to be able to manage different modes when something hasn't worked, and being able to protect almost completely against it is now the challenge. But the good news is that horizon is now in our sights.
And we will get there?
Yeah, definitely we will. It won't be a slam dunk arrival of autonomous cars, from the George Jetson kind of.
Yep.
It's going to happen like a lot of these fairly sophisticated technologies in our lives. It's going to appear in other industries. It's going to be proven out. It's going to be developed in safe, what we call operating domains. There's going to be real commercial opportunities in these operating domains. And that's going to fuel the industry to mature that technology, to bring it to a consumer level.
Julian, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Oh, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
That was Julian Broadbent, founder and CEO of Applied EV. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.